Are you ready? Vanderbilt and Kentucky is the must-watch game in Week 13.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making us your first listen, and thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcasting network in America. Welcome in. We got an action-packed show here. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Yes, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Like I said, thank you for making us your first listen. Thanks to you everydayers. Shout out to you guys for making this what it is. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, Vanderbilt opens up as 9.5-point favorites against Kentucky. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to tell you kind of what has changed with Kentucky from the beginning of the season until now. We'll talk about that a little bit today and also throughout the rest of the week. The Heisman race, is it wide open? Does Diego Pavia still have a chance? We're going to answer that too. But this game is massive coming up for both teams. You got Vandy on one end playing for a college football playoff berth. Diego Pavia still trying to play his way into an invite to the Heisman ceremony, possibly enough votes to be in contention to win it. You got Kentucky on the other side. They're fighting for bowl eligibility, something that none of us thought possible at the beginning of the season, but here we are. So let's kind of get into this game, because when you look at the implications on this game, this is, and I said it last week during the bye week, this is the most crucial stretch for Vanderbilt. These next two games, this next 2-week period is like level 20 out of 10 level of importance, level of crucialness for this season. It's a massive game for Vanderbilt. They are 12th in the AP poll. Curious to see where they're going to fall on Tuesday when the college football playoff rankings come out. Some of the scenarios did not go in favor of Vanderbilt this weekend. Texas losing, I don't know what that does for Vanderbilt. That gets their third loss. Essentially, they're out, but are they? I don't know. But some of the scenarios like Oklahoma beating Alabama didn't really help. BYU won. They held serve. Notre Dame held serve. Texas Tech held serve. Oregon held serve. Ole Miss held serve. Georgia, of course, and then Indiana and Ohio State all won. So it's going to be, it's going to be down to the wire. So all Vanderbilt has to do is win, and we'll just see where the chips fall, right? So this game is the first game up in the two most crucial games in Vanderbilt's program history. If they don't win this one, it's all for naught. The college football playoff thing, all for naught, right? They'll still make a really nice bowl. 9 wins is a really, really good season. If they can get there, but they have to win this week and they have to win next week to get to 10, which would be amazing. So when you look at the overall importance, they're going up against a team who at the beginning of the season was left for dead. They couldn't win. They looked pathetic at times. They couldn't get things together. Everyone thought, okay, well, Kentucky's going to be open at the end of the year as far as looking for a head coach. Mark Stoops just was not the guy. And all of that. They make a change at quarterback. They go with Cutter Boley. Still not great at that point, but he gets a little better each week, right? And they get a little bit closer, like against Texas. They took them to overtime, a couple of bad decisions away from winning that game. And the next week, I can't remember who they played the next week, but they beat Auburn 10-3, which not overly impressive offensive performance, but their defense held strong and shut down Auburn's offense, which I think there was a lot of other things happening with that game. But they beat the holy crap out of Florida. And then, of course, they have a get-right game with Tennessee Tech, which you can't really glean much on that. I think that the two games to look at the most are probably the last two SEC games, especially the game at home against Florida where they just shellacked the Gators, and it was 38-7. That game was just ridiculous. So they're playing for something. They're sitting on 5 wins right now. So this is a dangerous team because they're hungry. They want to go to a bowl. They want to get those extra practices. They want to show that, hey, we were left for dead. We're not anymore. We're no longer the worst team in the conference because I don't think Mississippi State's going to make a bowl. There's a chance that if Mississippi State can pull an upset, they'll get to bowl eligibility. If Kentucky can somehow find a win between Vanderbilt and Louisville, they'll get to a bowl game. And I think, I don't know how far we are away from the entire conference. Well, no, check that because Auburn's not going to make a bowl and South Carolina's probably, I don't think South Carolina's going to make a bowl either. So I need to check my math on all of that. But again, they're climbing the ranks. They're fighting towards bowl eligibility. So both teams have massive things to play for. And this is a matchup where you can't take things too lightly, right? I mean, you got Arkansas, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, which is an important game for Tennessee, Missouri, Oklahoma, which has huge implications for Oklahoma if they can go and finish that one out. And then the rest are just, South Carolina, Coastal, Western Kentucky, LSU, Mercer, Auburn, Charlotte at Georgia, things like Samford at Texas A&M. So it's kind of your pre-Thanksgiving cupcake. So it's, again, a game of utmost importance because I think there's, with the implications, and I think this is the biggest game of the slate because with all of the implications on the line, with everything that both teams are playing for, I don't think there's a game with this much riding on it. Even Missouri and Oklahoma, because Missouri's already bowl eligible. Oklahoma's obviously playing for that and battling for that spot in the college football playoff because they have to be perfect as well down the stretch. They play Mizzou this week, and I believe they play LSU next week. So that'll be an important stretch for them. But again, it's going to be, this college football playoff also is going to come down to a lot of crazy twists and turns. I think these next couple of weeks, I think next weekend is going to be really, really crazy with all the possibilities out there and with all the scenarios that are going to have to happen for the committee to have to choose from, because you look at all these things, and then conference title stuff is going to affect things depending on who makes it to Atlanta from the SEC, depending on how the ACC shakes out, which I think that's going to be one big bid league anyway. And I think it's going to come down to Miami and Georgia Tech at this point. I don't think Virginia is going to be able to hold on. And of course, Louisville lost to Clemson this past weekend, so I think they're out. So that'll be something. Notre Dame is going to be kind of a weird case. They beat Pitt pretty handily, so that game is kind of that game was kind of one of those that was a possibility for USC to lose, or not USC, but for Notre Dame to lose. But again, this is going to be, like I said, it's going to be. There's a lot of teams that deserve it. There's a lot of teams that are in the race. Vandy's percentage, I think, has gone down a little bit, which kind of takes the wind out of your sails a little bit. But again, just get to 10-2. That's the biggest thing. Just get to 10-2 and see where the chips fall. If you can beat Kentucky, and it starts with beating Kentucky this week, and this Kentucky team's not easy. Like, if you'd have told me at the beginning of the year, I had this as a circled win, because I was like, what the heck is Kentucky? And after like the fourth week, I was like, just wait till we get to Kentucky. Like, that's going to be, but now, like, into the season, Kentucky, like, they're a team that always gets better every year. So this is kind of a pattern for them. But again, it just comes down to execute. You do you. And I don't love this. And I'll talk about the spread later. I don't love this spread either. 9.5. That's a terrible spread for a game like this, because it's gonna, I think Clark Lee does a phenomenal job of not letting them buy into what Nick Saban calls rat poison. But 9.5 scares me, because like they see that and it's just, maybe they think they're going to waltz through this game. I don't know. Cutter Boley is a pretty good quarterback. So again, get to 10-2, see where the chips fall. There's a lot of scenarios, but this game, I can't explain the importance of it, because I don't think they've ever been in a game of this magnitude since like the 20s, since like the 1920s. They've never been in a game to where at this point in the season to where these implications are on the line, like legitimate college football playoff implications, big time competing for a national championship type implications on a game this far in the season. So this is uncharted waters, people. That's why it's crucial. It's critical. It's a massively crucial matchup. And again, at 9.5 points, Vanderbilt should treat this as if it were 1.5 points. Maybe even treat it as if you're the underdog and go out there and take care of business. So this game's important. It's the last one at the bank. And so that'll have some juice to it with Pavia and Stowers and all this crew that this is their last game at First Bank Stadium. So that should play into the enthusiasm a little bit. The crowd should be hype. I mean, this is going to be an atmosphere, which, again, the reason why I say bizarre in the title is because I don't think either teams have been in this type of matchup where they're like both playing for something massive. Like Kentucky's playing for a massive turnaround in their season. Like they make a bowl, if they can make a bowl game after how they started, massive turnaround, massive improvement. And that's what they're playing for. I mean, it's not quite the implications that Vanderbilt's playing for, but again, a lot of program pride in that. So again, here we go. Here we are. Crucial game, college football bowl eligibility, and all that stuff's on the line. Yet still, Diego Pavia in his Heisman race is wide open. We're going to talk about that next. First, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, this official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next fourth quarter comebacks or what will happen throughout the course of the game. Plus, even you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps the game very exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We appreciate you. Thanks for making Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcasting network in the industry. We appreciate you guys. If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC is the place to go. Now, this game carries a lot of implications for a lot of different reasons. Talked about the college football playoff aspect of it for Vanderbilt, also fighting against a team that's fighting for bowl eligibility. That's what makes this matchup very, very contentious, very, very good, and must-see TV for Week 13. Now, another avenue to this matchup, as Kirk Herbstreit stated during the Georgia game, during the telecast, and I'm paraphrasing this, so I didn't write down the exact quote. It was just in the run of during the game, during the television broadcast, but he said that there was no clear front runner for the Heisman Trophy. So what does that mean exactly? Well, Diego Pavia is still playing for a shot at an invite to New York City. And with another great performance, kind of like he did against Auburn, the numbers wise like he did against Texas, how he put the team on his back against LSU and carried them to a win. And like he's been doing all season, I think if he has another performance like that, where he carries a team, puts up a bunch of numbers, and gets a victory, and even covers the spread against Kentucky, I think you've really got to look at him as a serious contender. Now, I get it. Mendoza is kind of pulling away on this thing, right? And right now he's the odds-on favorite, and he's kind of the odds-on favorite by a lot, according to the odds makers. And you saw that kind of take a hit, and then he quickly erased that in the Penn State game. Started off a little sluggish against Wisconsin, but never really faltered. They won 31-7, so it's kind of hard to say he faltered in that game. And he's doing everything he can to be the Heisman frontrunner. And truthfully, I think that's where it's going to land. But as I said last week, and as I said with Mike Huseman, just getting to New York is a massive, massive deal. And if Diego Pavia can get enough votes to get into that finalist field, whether the Heisman committee decides to take 3, 4, or 5 candidates, depending on the voting, that's up to the committee. Now, Ty Simpson's bid took a slight setback against Oklahoma. His numbers are still very impressive, but he took a slight step back against Oklahoma. I think you have to win that game to be in the race. So he came back to the pack a little bit. Marcel Reed had a horrible first half, great comeback in the second half. So it's like, okay, what do you do with that performance, right? Julian Sayin just continuing to put up great numbers, but when you look at some of the competition, I don't know where that stands. I don't know where the voters stand on that. Like, it's all coming down to the voters, and where they see each of these performances. And then you have Diego Pavia, who's taking this Vanderbilt team to heights that they've never been before, never sniffed before, any of that. And they're in conversations that they have never been in and likely may never be in. Now, I hope the latter is not true. I hope they continue to be in these discussions, and I think they certainly have a chance to. But again, it's because of Diego Pavia that they're in these conversations. They're winning games they shouldn't. They're sitting on the cusp of the college football playoff. Like, there's a lot at stake here for that. And if he can win these next 2 games, that'll go a long way in Heisman voters' eyes. Like, you can't ignore this. You can't ignore these performances, and you can't ignore what the team is doing and what he is doing as a result, and kind of how it's all connected, because it still is a team sport. And when the leader of your team is doing such things, it's hard to ignore. It's hard to look away and say, or it's hard to look at it and say, okay, this guy does not deserve to be here, and we should give him the votes to be able to do so, right? And I'm not saying Ty Simpson's a bad quarterback. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying his performance took a step back. I don't know what that's going to do in the minds of voters. Like, do the voters just kind of say, he wasn't quite, wasn't quite there. He was close. Does he get? I mean, he probably still gets an invite. Julian Sayin probably gets an invite. I don't know that he's necessarily better or more important or more valuable than Diego Pavia. Like, there's different arguments, like with numbers, best players, but like most valuable, I think, has to come into mind here too. When you have a race this tight, and when you have finalists and you have a list of guys like Fernando Mendoza and Diego Pavia are probably the 2 most valuable quarterbacks in the country. Like, like, those are 2 schools, Indiana and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, essentially a baseball school. Indiana, a basketball school, are both in the college football playoff conversation. Indiana sitting as the number 2 team in the country. They're a lock for the playoff. They're a lock for a bye in the playoff. And depending on what happens in the Big Ten championship, I feel like they're a lock for a bye anyway, because even if they lose, the worst they'll do is drop to 4, given what's happening around college football. So, like, again, if Diego Pavia can go out and put numbers up against Kentucky and then go into Neyland and do something similar and beat Tennessee, that'll be – I feel like that would be very, very difficult to ignore. I feel like that would be something that the voters would be like, yeah, it's Vanderbilt, and this doesn't happen. And this dude is valuable. He's putting up numbers. He's actually a legitimate quarterback. And that's, when you look at it, this is the first step in the right direction. For Diego Pavia, they've got to go out. He's got to have a dominant performance against Kentucky, which they're a good defense. That's going to be tough to do. Mark Stoops, if there's anything he does well, defense is definitely that. So it's interesting because, again, the crucial factor of this game, college football playoff for the team, Heisman contention for Diego Pavia. Yes, we're still talking about Heisman contention. Mendoza, like I said, Mendoza's got to be the winner. Like I think if he's the favorite and he continues to put up performances like this, I think he deserves it. But to leave Diego Pavia out of the conversation, to dismiss him would be irresponsible. So I think he, you look at Marcel Reed, you look at Ty Simpson, you look at Julian Sayin, and then you look at Diego Pavia. Like, what do those four quarterbacks, mean to their team? What happens, And there's nothing to say. Like, there's the problem is there's five great quarterbacks at the top of this thing. How do you sort them out? Do you invite them all? Like, I think they all have a case. I really do. Like, I think the Heisman committee should invite five guys. And because I think you have five deserving guys. Like, those guys are deserving. Diego Pavia is also deserving. And he's going to get a chance to prove that against Kentucky and then ultimately against Tennessee next week. So Vanderbilt opens up 9.5-point favorites. What does that look like? We'll talk about it next. I want to talk about game time first because, man, it's so awesome, man. College football is coming down to the wire, and it can't be more exciting than it is now, man. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, all of that. There's nothing like it, man, but let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, all of that. Man, it's for the birds. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Now, I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals, man. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. And you know what? What I loved about the app the most is you get the exact view from your seat before you buy. They have this thing called zone deals. Game Time picks the section, or you pick the seat. Game Time, you pick the section. Game Time picks. See, I'm so excited that I'm stumbling over that. You pick the section. Game Time picks the seats. You save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. What's up, everybody? Wrapping up the show here. Locked on Vandy. Thanks for making us your first listen. I have to remind you guys, thank you for making Locked On the number one sports podcasting network in the industry. It's phenomenal. It's because of y'all. It's all y'all. It's the reason why we're number one. So thank you. And as we wrap up, Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms if you want to follow the show. And if you want to follow me personally at Coach Burton 36, appreciate all the love, appreciate all the support, and appreciate you guys, man. This is an incredibly crucial stretch of games. Starting with this one. This one is beyond crucial. And Vandy opens up as 9.5-point favorites. I don't love that. I do not like that spread whatsoever. Because of what Kentucky's playing for, I do not like this spread. And normally I've been super like, yeah, Vandy, yeah, but they've been playing very tight lately. And so these big spreads aren't good. Here's kind of the tail of the tape. Here's kind of the brief overview. Now we're going to get into more of this. Hopefully I got Lance Daw coming on for a crossover, joining me for a crossover later on this week. I'm in talks with him. Hopefully that can happen. They're kind of in basketball mode over there too at Kentucky, so that'll be kind of interesting. Anyway, opening line 9.5 in favor of Vandy. The over/under 53.5. Guess they seem to think these offenses are going to score a ton of points. Which, if you've been watching Vanderbilt lately, they've scored a ton of points. If you've watched Kentucky lately, they've scored a ton of points, like 38 of them on Florida, who's got a legitimate defense. Now, here's my evaluation of them for y'all on the audio side. Just listen. For everybody on the YouTube side, you can look and listen. So Kentucky is a team that has drastically improved over the course of the season. Mark Stoops made the decision to switch from Zach Calzada to Cutter Boley at quarterback, and that has proven to be a phenomenal move, right? Boley's a dynamic quarterback with a live arm and is getting more comfortable in the offense. Seth McGowan Kendrick Law, among others, have made huge plays for Kentucky, especially against Florida, 38-7, man. It's crazy. They were getting turnovers. They were capitalizing. They were moving the ball, all that stuff. The defense has been tough as well. They've been banged up with a little bit of injury as well, and going to see kind of how things are going there. I think a good chunk of the defense missed against Tennessee Tech, which probably a lot of was precautionary, and if it was a massive conference game, they probably would have played. But what I love about this team is they play extremely hard, and they're going to be a tough team to beat down the stretch. So their notable players, obviously quarterback Cutter Boley, Seth McGowan, Kendrick Law, Alex Alfari, who was out against Tennessee Tech. It's going to be interesting to see when that availability report comes out on Wednesday to kind of see who's what, who's where, who's in, who's out, all that good stuff. So this game, again, scares the crap out of me. 9.5-point favorites. Vanderbilt is. Now, they've played well enough offensively to warrant that. But defensively, have they? Not in the last 2 weeks. And this is an offense that they're facing that, again, the talent is just not as deep as the teams they've played. But they have some dudes. Like Kendrick Law can go get it. They have Dowdle as their other running back in tandem with Seth McGowan, who is very tough. They have a really good running duo. Cutter Boley is a dynamic threat running the ball as well as throwing it. I mean, he's a guy that's getting more and more comfortable. I think at the beginning of the year when they put him in, like, he wasn't as effective because he just wasn't comfortable. And he's gotten better each and every week. The play calling around him has gotten better each and every week because I think they're kind of getting to know him and know what he's doing well. The team is just believing, and they're dynamic offensively. They do a lot of good stuff. Obviously, they like to run the ball, and they like to involve Boley in the running game. So that's going to be interesting. And the defense they just play hard. They play hard. They're smart. They're well coached. And to be honest, watching them the last 3 weeks against Auburn, against Florida, and I didn't watch the Tennessee Tech game, I'll be honest. Just watched the highlights of that one, and there's not much you can get from that. But just looking at this team in their last two conference games, defensively, they just get after you. They cause havoc along the lines, and they just flat get after you. And offensively, they struggle at times. And what I've seen the first 2 weeks and what I've noticed at the beginning of the season, it's like, why were they so bad then? I mean, obviously, Calzada is a big reason, but like they took Ole Miss, they made life tough for Ole Miss. They was just off at the beginning of the year. Even when they made the change from Calzada to Boley, like it's just the transition period was just it. They just had to get comfortable with it. And Boley was making mistakes, and this defense was overplayed. And, there was a lot of factors at the beginning of the year that when you're a team that's trying to gel and you're a team that's trying to find a groove or find a rhythm, it just makes it tough. And that's kind of what they were going through. They were going through a little bit of growing pains. They were going through a little bit of there was just a huge, massive amount of change from last year to this year as far as roster goes. There was the notion that Mark Stoops was just kind of burnt out, and it looked like he was. And there was a notion that he could be let go, or he could leave on his own, or he's waiting for another job to open up, like maybe Iowa, which I don't think that's going to open up because they're playing some really good football, but they didn't play well against USC. However, I don't know if just the struggles at the beginning of the season just kind of knocked Mark Stoops back a few notches, and he was just trying to figure it out, and he was just down, and now he's finally got his mojo back again. I mean, these guys play hard for him, and he just kind of got reinvigorated, especially after that Auburn game where things finally went right against Texas. Like things went right until they didn't anymore in the fourth quarter, and they had to learn how to win games. They had to learn how to do some of this stuff. And they did against Florida. It all came together against Florida. Now, you could say Florida has quit and they're just terrible. But I mean, Florida has a great roster. Not like they're playing and a great roster that if they were smart, they'd be playing for portal spots or auditioning for their new coach. Like, they gave Ole Miss a lot. So I don't know. But the point is, 9.5 points scares the hell out of me. I'll be honest. Cutter Boley's a great quarterback. I think he's good. He's going to be a great quarterback. The rest of this year or next. I just hope they don't get their 6th win until they play Louisville. But this is a game. It's hard to call, honestly. I'm not touching the over/under because I tried that. I tried that with the Auburn game, completely whiffed. Vandy minus 9.5. I don't know that I can pick that. Now, I think Vanderbilt's going to win. I just, the way they've been playing on defense lately, I just don't think they're going to win by more than 2 scores. The way they've been playing defensively. Now, they could come out, finally figure it out, and just completely shut Kentucky down, which Kentucky's more of a run-based team, so that may be a little bit easier. They could. I think they have an offense similar to what Missouri had with Bo Pabula, where it's a lot based on their running backs, but their quarterback can make some things happen, and they can get some things going in the passing game as well. So there's a lot to like about this Kentucky team. So with that being said, we're going to have plenty of time this week to talk about it and break it all down. Again, Mike Huseman's going to come back and join me later on this week, and we're going to break down Kentucky. We're also going to just look at every angle for this matchup and break down the most crucial matchup for Vanderbilt in program history. And we're going to do it all again next week at Kentucky, the most crucial, critical Tennessee game that Vanderbilt will probably ever play, probably has ever played, and probably, I don't know, hopefully not will ever play, because hopefully there's more of these. Anyway, until next time, thanks for making us your first listen. Thanks for joining. Just check out the rest of the network if you covering your team every day. So whatever you want to, whatever floats your boat. If you want to go listen to Lance Dahl over at Locked On Kentucky this week, go right ahead. It's a great show. Does a great job over there. And until next time, anchor down. Peace.